Former U.S. Republican presidents George Bush Sr. and his son George W. have called on Americans to reject racism and anti-Semitism. It's being seen as a rebuke to Donald Trump for his comments about who was responsible for clashes in Charlottesville on Saturday. Mr. Trump sparked fury when he again blamed both anti-racist protesters and white supremacists. One demonstrator, Heather Heyer, was killed. At her memorial service, her mother said the killer had wanted to silence her daughter, but it ended up magnifying her. President Trump has announced he's dismantling 2 advisory panels made up mainly of senior business figures. Several resigned in the controversy over the U.S. leader's reaction to events in Charlottesville.
The enduring defeat of ISIS remains a top priority for the United States. The U.S.-led global coalition to defeat ISIS is leading stabilization efforts that consolidate military gains, restore basic essential services, and enable Syrians to voluntarily and safely return to their homes in Raqqa and other former ISIS strongholds. Assistance includes explosive hazard and rubble removal, providing clean water, rehabilitating electricity networks, and other basic necessities. Since April, the United States has elicited approximately $300 million in contributions and pledges from coalition partners to support immediate stabilization and early recovery initiatives in areas liberated from ISIS in northeast Syria.
We're not here saying this is the newest, most horrible threat to freshwater turtles. It's probably still the case that loss of habitat, introduced predators, overexploitation, those are the big threats to freshwater turtles. But it might very well be that ingestion of plastics and other litter is a big threat for some species and for some populations. We don't know. But given that turtles are really having a rough go of it right now. I mean, this is the most threatened group of vertebrates. 61% of all turtle species are threatened or have gone extinct in historic times. Like it's a rough time to be a turtle on this planet.
Polly and his colleagues call on biologists to devote some of their attention to this understudied topic, and regular people can do their part as well, especially with all the single-use PPE we've all been wearing throughout the pandemic, like the nitrile glove pieces Polly found inside one of the turtles.
Something, external drive? Yeah, so I had it on a 12-inch MacBook, the first generation 12-inch MacBook, and I sort of gave up on that. That machine is slow, and with a beta Mac OS on it was really struggling, and so I moved it to an external SSD, and I'm booting my 15-inch MacBook Pro from it, and doing that, and then my iPad Pro. Just yesterday, I put the iPad OS public beta on it, and I really like the features. I think there's a lot of really interesting stuff in iPad OS, but it's pretty rough around the edges.
published in the journal Scientific Reports.
There's not this awareness that freshwater turtles have this potential threat of plastic ingestion. And one of the big goals that we have with our paper is just trying to get increased awareness that plastic ingestion is potentially a big issue for freshwater turtles, and that if a researcher comes across a dead turtle or a veterinarian is presented with a dead turtle, that it's an opportunity to then examine those animals to see whether plastic ingestion is much more common than we currently think.
If there is good news, it's that none of the turtles that Polly's team examined seemed to have suffered from swallowing the litter. They all appeared to be in good health.
They run into issues, and an example of this in my mind is the App Store review policy that changed a couple of years ago, that if you are running an iOS beta, you cannot leave a review in the App Store.
Right.
Which, I have it on I'm running iPad OS on my iPad Pro, and I've got a couple apps that basically crash at launch or crash, on a pretty regular basis.
The notion that you could create anything at all has major implications for our health. It means that we'll eventually be able to replicate anything. This would have a phenomenal effect on our society. In time, it could even lead to the eradication of famine through the introduction of machines that produce food to feed the hungry.